in 2013, I think it was. They were actually talking about removing LDL from the risk calculators and no longer making LDL levels a target of treatment. And some of the other cardiologists who disagreed with that point of view had a fit over it. But some of the risk calculators that are used to predict your future rate of heart disease actually don't use LDL.
I mean, some of the calculators used by physicians in clinics today
Right,
do not use LDL.
right. And
Other
you can
calculators
find,
presumably do. So
well, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
if you have an element that doesn't have, it's like,
yeah. Well, I mean,
adding a
I
zero to
didn't.
your formula.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
didn't
going to
know this at
change the
all.
outcome.
I didn't know this at all. So okay, but this is where a lot of people, and this is an area where I don't know so much, so I can sort of ask my questions naturally and honestly here because this is not an area of expertise for me. So, but what this is going to be surprising to a lot of people, right? Because the whole
Right.
isn't the whole story that most of us have been told that LDL is the bad cholesterol. LDL being high is what drives heart disease. You just said that some cardiologists use calculators to calculate heart disease that don't take LDL into account. What's going on here?
Well, they use, again, I've not looked at these calculators in a number of years because I find the top, it's just not an area of my interest. But so yeah, it's just not a good predictor. And you can find plenty of studies that are, will say no relationship was found between LDL and cardiovascular rates. I
Mm-hmm.
know the Jupiter study was a major one, and that was one of its conclusions. Um, so, a colleague and friend of mine, Ivor Cummings, has done a lot of work on this and drilled through, what are the, you know, he has a list of
Yeah.
a list of these types of studies, and he and I did a little bit of work on one point and so LDL is a type of lipoprotein. Is the protein part of it is a lipoprotein called ApoB, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apobeta lipoprotein type B. Okay. There are So ApoB is often used now as a better marker for cardiovascular disease than LDL.
Yep.
95% of the ApoB in your bloodstream are LDL particles, right? So the risk is probably coming from the other 5% if
Mm.
LDL doesn't have much of an effect. So
Yeah.
what's the other 5%?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are two types of ApoB molecules. There's ApoB 100.
Yeah. So hold on. I just want
Okay,
to
go
build a
ahead.
visual for people. So your blood, right, you can't mix oil and water. Fatty stuff doesn't mix well with watery stuff. So
Right.
you've got your cardiovascular system. It's a series of tubes through which your blood flows. And so the body has to have a way to transport fatty stuff through the aqueous environment of the blood. What Tucker's talking about here is if you imagine just like a bubble or a sphere of fat, it is being transported around. It's got certain proteins like ApoB embedded in it, and it's a structure for moving this fatty stuff around the body. And your body has different reasons for doing that. It might
Right.
use some of those fat molecules for energy somewhere else. It might use some of the stuff in there as structural components. What you're saying is one of these little transporters has ApoB lipoprotein in it. It's 95% LDL, low density lipoprotein, a component, and then there's other stuff in it. But people mostly have focused on the LDL part because it's a huge component of it, and maybe have
Right.
overlooked what else is in this stuff.
Right. Well, again, we started off looking at atheromas and finding they have cholesterol in them. Okay. So we researched cholesterol. Doesn't seem to have quite the relationship that we thought it was going to. And then we discovered that there's more than cholesterol at play. There are these lipoproteins, right? And 95% of that is LDL. So we're going along the low-hanging fruit, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Investigating each fruit on the tree
Yeah,
as they're more obvious, which is not an unreasonable thing to do. I mean, it's the preferred analytic technique. I
yeah,
forget,
yeah,
there's some fancy name for it, the
yeah,
Pareto principle.
yeah, yeah. But I think part of what you're
Um,
part of what you're doing here is some of the stuff that I read and some of the papers you shared with me are that there's just extreme variability in clinical expression of cardiovascular disease with respect to LDL. So even if you took, say, a family that has a genetic disorder, giving them very, very high cholesterol levels, hypercholesterolemia, there is striking diversity in when they get heart disease. And the relationship to the
Right.
specific cholesterol levels is much, much more variable than you would expect if there was a straight line that connects cholesterol to heart disease in the simplest way you might imagine.
Right. That's exactly right. And, again, we were discussing what an atheroma is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, an atheroma is the wall of the artery, right? And familial hypercholesterolemia, FH, is a disease in which you are unable to get cholesterol and lipoproteins into the wall of the artery.
Mm.
Okay. Now we have a treatment called a PCSK9 inhibitor. Okay. So cholesterol gets into your artery wall by something called the LDL receptor. And there's some other receptors, but we're going to start with that one. In FH, the LDL receptor is dysfunctional,
Mm-hmm.
okay, genetically dysfunctional. So it is unable to bring cholesterol and the LDL particle into
Mm-hmm.
the wall of the artery in the normal frequency.
I see.
Okay.